better, the big fundamental Tim Duncan or the mailman Karl Malone? One of the most difficult who's better I have ever done. And so now, who's better? Tim Duncan. He's better.
What up, what up, what up? It's your boy, back again. Marlo Knows Basketball and Marlo Knows Boxing. Back at y'all with another one. This video is for all of the people like my little brother Dion. This video is dedicated to my little brother Dion, unintentionally. But all of the people that think like my little brother and say that championships are a team accomplishment. Championships are a team accomplishment. He's a huge LeBron fan, and that's where I hear it coming from mostly, is LeBron fans who say championships are a team accomplishment because Jordan has 6 championships, 6-0 in the finals, to LeBron's 4 championships. LeBron, of course, 4-9, or is it 4-10 in NBA Finals? But they love to say that championships are just a team accomplishment, and they want that thrown out because it hurts their argument for LeBron. But you play to win the game. That's the whole reason why they're out there playing. They're not playing just to play. And a prime example of this is Karl Malone versus Tim Duncan. Now, why is Tim Duncan considered better than Karl Malone? Let's take a look. Now, if we want to compare these two players without championships being involved, we got Tim Duncan with 2 MVPs. Karl Malone matches him with 2 MVPs of his own. Why is Tim Duncan better than Karl Malone? We could take a look at all NBA first team selections. Karl Malone 11, Tim Duncan 10. So he beats Tim Duncan in all NBA first team selections. So why is Tim Duncan considered better? When you look at all NBA defensive first teams, Tim Duncan beats Karl Malone. So now we're still at a standstill. This is shaping up to be a great debate, man. These players are pretty much almost equal. Then when we move on to statistics, Karl Malone averaged 25 points a game for his career. Tim Duncan only averaged 19 points per game for his career. And then when you look at who was more efficient, Karl Malone had a true shooting percentage of 57%. Tim Duncan only had a true shooting percentage of 55%. So not only did Karl Malone average way more points than Tim Duncan, he was a way more efficient scorer than Tim Duncan. So he averaged more points on better efficiency. That's another point for Karl Malone. And then when you look at rebounds per game, both players, Tim Duncan and Karl Malone, averaged 10 rebounds a game. When you look at assists per game, both players, Tim Duncan and Karl Malone, both averaged 3 assists a game. When you look at steals per game, Karl Malone averaged more steals than Tim Duncan a game. And when you look at blocks per game, Tim Duncan averaged more blocks per game than Karl Malone. So when you look at statistics, Karl Malone being a better scorer, scoring way more points than Tim Duncan, on better efficiency than Tim Duncan, you got to give the stats argument to Karl Malone. So at that point, we again ask, why is Tim Duncan considered better than Karl Malone? Like I said, accolades is basically a tie. The statistical argument, we've determined that goes to Karl Malone because with stats, Karl Malone averages way more points on better efficiency. Rebounds is a tie. Assist is a tie. And Karl Malone averages more steals. Tim Duncan averages more blocks. So you got to give the statistical argument to Karl Malone. So again, we ask, why is Tim Duncan considered better than Karl Malone? And the answer is pretty easy. The only reason that Tim Duncan is universally considered better than Karl Malone and the greatest power forward of all time is because he won championships. Championships is what separated their legacies. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the reason that Tim Duncan is better than Karl Malone, because he won championships. Like the great Herm Edwards said, you play to win the game.
This is what's great about sports. This is what the greatest thing about sports is. You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.